What's up, YouTube? So, do you often get unmotivated in your musical endeavors? You feel like your projects reach a point where they kind of lose steam and you end up just faffing around, and it feels like your time that you're investing in this new hobby might be going to waste. So hopefully these 5 tips will help you build healthy habits to maintain a more consistent, productive musical career. Anyway, let's dive in and have a look. So number 1 is consistency, and I feel like this is probably the most important habit to build, and I feel like it's probably the key to actually building habits. I feel like a lot of the next things that I'm going to talk about will rely on just being consistent in the first place. That being said, it's important to create some kind of schedule for yourself, whether it's wanting to release a piece of music once a month, once a week, once a day. Whatever the case is, if you're releasing sound packs or videos, it's important to dedicate a day, whether it's one day a week that you kind of decide if it's a Friday, or one day a month, maybe it's the first of the month or something like that. It's important to pick a day and remain consistent. Even if you don't see the benefits at the beginning, sometimes it's hard to see the wood from the trees when we're still in the thick of it. After remaining consistent for a period of time, you will start to see the benefits. Number 2 is put in a little bit of work every single day. Even if it's just creating one sound or creating a few sounds, it's important to build your skills as a producer. So putting in 30 minutes to an hour every day is not only going to help you build that habit of remaining consistent, but it's also going to help you to build skills that are just going to make you a better producer. It's also important to build on your progress. So what I mean by that is save your presets, save the sounds that you create, render the drum sounds and all sorts of things that you create, because often they might not work in this exact context. But next time we need a sound, like a kick sound or something like that, having to rebuild that entire sound from scratch might waste the very valuable time that we have to work on our hobbies. So it's important to always build on your progress. You know, one thing that I like to do is have a template preset for specific synths that I'm working in. Say, for example, in Vital, I'll have a bass template preset, and every day I'll craft it a little bit more and a little bit more until eventually I get to the point where it's the perfect preset. But that means I'll never have to actually start from scratch and waste those maybe 10-20 minutes that it's going to take to craft that sound. I've always got a starting point that I can jump into, save that 10-20 minutes, and then start creating something a little bit more unique. My next point builds on the last point. I guess all of these points kind of build on each other. But the next point is to start building your own unique library. Whether it's the sounds that you create yourself, whether it's the sample packs that you collect, or whether it's preset packs that you collect, or even just, you know, cherry pies or mud pies from projects that you're working on that you render out to use later on down the line. It's important to build up your own unique library of sounds. And rather than just having every sample pack and every preset pack that you can have, it's important to have a place where you dedicate to only have your favorite ones. So for example, I've actually got 2 sample drives. One which has, you know, everything on it, and one which only has the stuff that I use in, let's say, every project. And I found that breaking it up like that was so much more productive because I no longer have to search through millions of samples to find that 1 or 2 that I use all the time. I've kind of broken it up into essentials. And, you know, if I'm really stuck and I need to look for something that's maybe a little bit more bizarre, then I can go into my samples drive. But since I've split them, I've found myself almost never going to my sample drive, except if I'm looking for something specific that, you know, I remember was somewhere. But I almost never go into that specific drive. For those types of things, I end up just synthesizing the stuff from scratch, you know. So splitting it up into a more kind of essentials samples folder, an essential sounds folder, not only helped me work quicker, but it also helped me to kind of create my own unique sound as an artist, because there's a specific set of sounds that I use that kind of crafts my own kind of unique voice as an artist. As opposed to just having everything to choose from, it kind of tends to be a little bit of a mishmash of everything. So again, my next point builds on the last point, And this is something that I like to call off time is on time. So what I mean by this is, yes, you may not have an hour to dedicate every day to music production. Maybe you've got 10 or 20 minutes. Maybe you can spend that time to sort your sample directory, create folders that are going to help you when you do have the time to make that process quicker. So when I say off time is on time, I mean, if you have that 10 or 20 minutes, spend that time to make the creative session that you may have tomorrow or the next day happen much quicker and happen much smoother. You know, spend that time removing plugins that you maybe don't use anymore, removing sample packs and stuff, moving them to your other drive, maybe stuff that you don't use anymore. And this is just going to make the workflow for your next session so much better. Okay, so my last point is focus on your niche and not the numbers. So I think this is something that a lot of creative people get stuck in, specifically nowadays, where value is so much dependent, or at least perceived value is very much dependent on the numbers. You know, how many followers people have on Instagram and that kind of thing. Kind of, that's how people perceive their own value as a creative. And I feel like it's important to not fall too much into that trap, because what tends to happen is you tend to cast your net a little bit too wide. So what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, I'm going to talk from personal experience. You know, as a sound designer, if I had to start making sounds for every different genre and start releasing preset packs for every different genre, I feel like I'll probably end up spreading myself too thin, and the sounds may not be as good as I want them to be. So what I do is I focus more on my niche, and that helps me to be a lot more focused as an artist and focused as a creative person. And the results are that the people that are engaging with whatever creative medium you're putting out are going to appreciate it for the value that they originally connected to it for. I think there's obviously a line to be drawn. And again, I'm going to speak from personal experience. I like to say that my content doesn't really appeal too much to the masses. For example, I do really weird Bitwig grid tutorials, and there's actually so few people that use Bitwig, and within those people, so few of those people use the grid, that I'm definitely painting myself into a corner in terms of the niche. But what I'm doing is I'm securing that part of the market so that, you know, if there's anything that's kind of grid related, it's most likely going to be in my corner of the internet. You know what I mean? So it's important to really go all out and, you know, focus on that niche as opposed to the numbers. If I was shooting for the numbers, I'd probably be making reaction videos to other people making beats in Ableton and that kind of stuff. But what happens then is, because you're spreading yourself so thin, there's almost nothing for the dedicated few to latch onto and really focus on. But again, that's just my perspective. And yeah, hope that helps you guys out. Hope that motivates you a little bit. I know that being creative has its ups and downs. Even myself, I can struggle with motivation. But these 5 tips, I guess this is something that I'm also reminding myself to keep doing. But these kind of 5 tips are something that I definitely think about when I am struggling with that motivation. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, if you haven't yet, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.